What's inside the box? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Effie and I'm growing 100 plants in my New York City apartment. Today, I've got some plant mail. The first import I've had in quite a long time. Before I open it up, I need to check that there's room in my grow tent for it. I keep all imports in my grow tent just to recover from the import process, which is currently occupied with lots of rehabbing anthuriums and a couple of baby alocasia. So I think I'm going to have to clean it out. Take you along with me as I clean out the tent. I'll do some chores, do some repotting of those anthuriums, maybe give my queen anthurium a moss pole, with the goal of eventually getting it to live out here in open air in my living room. And yeah, I'll get this new one into water after it kind of adjusts to being in my grow tent. I'll see where exactly I want to keep it. Let's get into it. First things first, let's empty the tent. I'll pull all the plants out and just put them on the dining table to see what needs attention, and then I can clean the actual tent out. Okay, so the grow tent plants all have very, very different needs, and there's actually quite a few chores to do here to get all of them to a place where I'm happy enough and can sort of move some of them out. So a couple of them I think have to graduate to the living room environment today, which is a little bit stressful because it's actually not humid enough yet to have these guys in this living room. My humidity today is 29, so it's still dry. It's still dry to be putting them out, but there is no more space in the grow tent. So this is what I'm thinking. Queen Anthurium already looks terrible from underwatering. I don't know how this has happened, but it has needed a repot for so long. It's been underwatered, and to be honest, the downside of the grow tent is I often don't remember to water the plants in there because it's just not in a location where you can see them. So you're not walking by thinking, ooh, those plants need water. And yeah, sometimes you can forget. So in a way, it's sort of a double-edged sword. And then there's this guy. This is definitely getting a repot today. This is my Anthurium Warocqueanum x Cirinoi. It is, I've never grown such a difficult plant. It's horrible, guys. It's horrible. Maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe I won't. I may end up caving and putting this one in self-watering if I can't figure it out. Everything and nothing I do seems to work. It just looks horrendous. This one's going back in the grow tent because yeah, I know it won't do well out here. I'm hoping after I repotted that maybe with a bigger pot with lots more space for the roots to grow, it might be okay. Let's find out, no? This one, this is my Alocasia heterophylla dragon's breath. This was one of my prized alocasias, like one of my favorite plants ever, actually. So beautiful. Then it got a fungal infection and completely just unalived itself, just completely died back to a stump. And so I grabbed a couple of combs and potted them up and stuck them in the tent to germinate, and it did. And a third one has since sprouted. It's obviously out of space. This is crazy because, by the way, I watered this yesterday, and look at it. So this desperately needs that repot, desperately. And I think I'm going to break the pot just to preserve as many of these roots as I can, because I want to pull this out of the tent now. This isn't a plant that needs loads of humidity to grow. It can grow just fine in regular household humidity. So I want to put it out here in the living room. But one thing about alocasia is they need a robust root system to deal with, changes in conditions. So pulling it out here is not the problem. Repotting it's not the problem, but it will need its roots to bounce back without suffering. So I'm going to repot this today into a bigger pot, finally. I'll give it a cover pot like this with some water in the bottom because alocasias really, they quite like that. So I like these. This is an IKEA pot, and I like it. I like to put the plant in a plastic pot like this, in aroid mix or tree fern or whatever. And then there's a small gap at the bottom, and when I water it, it creates a mini reservoir which gives the roots that added moisture that they seem to like so much. That works super well for alocasia. Unfortunately, it's not always easy to balance the size of this outer pot with these plastic nursery pots, but I lucked out on this occasion, and I'll be scouring the house to see if I can find another one that will create this exact same effect, because it's the perfect gap. This works really well for alocasia and for Hoyas. And then there's this guy. Don't laugh. Why are you laughing? Stop laughing at me. This is a philodendron lupinum. I imported this, I don't know how long ago, but I left it in the water. Look at it. It's growing just fine. I haven't potted it up. I haven't given it a moss pole, which it needs. So today, I think I'm going to put this on a moss pole and either put it back in the tent or find a spot for it out here. And then finally, this bad boy, one of my favorite anthuriums, Anthurium Waterburyanum. Now, this is a plant that I used to grow in open air, but it really struggled in those conditions. Like, I grew it in my tent after import, and it did really well. Then I moved it to open air, and it struggled greatly. It's a very, I don't know, it needs a lot of water and humidity and all that. So then I moved it back into the tent, and it was still struggling, but then I potted it in pure tree fern, and it was really happy, really fun, really doing really well. So it really likes this mix that I have it in, which is tree fern, fiber. But look at the stem, it's climbing, it needs some support, so it needs a pole. I am reluctant to repot this guy because the pot is not full at all. You know, my initial thought was to give it a couple of pot extenders and just put lots of more tree fern around it, because it's also, a new leaf is coming in, and I don't want to disturb it. So I think I'm not going to repot this one. I think I will use the pot extenders on this one and stack some more tree fern to encourage it to root into that. And then later, after it's done all that, I will repot it and give it a moss pole, and off we go. I'm not sure this one is ever going to live out here, to be honest. This might be a tent plant, which is going to be tricky because the tent is small. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll probably have to cut it, I guess, eventually, but that's what I'm going to be doing to this one today. And then we also have these two, which are Alocasia scalprum and Alocasia watsoniana. Now, they're not watsoniana. It's growing a new leaf, so I think it's okay. The old leaf is expiring very rapidly, which is kind of stressful because the new one isn't done growing yet. And I can't see the roots yet, so I'm not sure if they're okay or not. This is a newer plant. It came as a seedling. I don't know, alocasia seedlings are so annoying. They can be funny. They either thrive or they don't. It's not the fastest of alocasias either, so I don't know what's going on here. This, I think, needs to stay in the tent. The scalprum seems okay. I'm still keeping it in the tent, I think. The thing is, with alocasias, you want them to establish a good root system before you pull them out. Okay, so we're going to start our chores with the big guy. I'm going to get the pot extenders and the tree fern and see what we can do for this guy. Okay, so I got the pot extenders from a company called Rousseau Plant Care. Comes with this. Look at the art, first of all. I just think this is so beautiful, right? Like, I just love it when people have good design savviness, you know. And there's a quick start guide on the back explaining how to use the pot extender. The idea is to literally extend the pot, basically, to give the roots something to grow into so that I can support the plant, give it extra roots to help it hold itself up without repotting it right now, because if I repot it, it will set it back. In the past, I've used another pot. Like I would just cut the pot and place another pot around it and fill it with substrate. But I'm looking for a more aesthetically pleasing solution. So hopefully this is it. I've wanted to try this out for quite some time now. So let's see what it says to do. I'm super impressed by the thought and the quality that went into this product. Like you can tell that it was made by someone who's passionate about plants. I bought this myself. This is not an ad. I just like the thought and the care and the beauty of the illustration. Is kind of blowing my mind right now. So these basically are the pot extenders. There are 1, 2, 3, there are 5 of them in here, and you can stack them one on top of the other. I imagine you probably shouldn't stack more than, I'm guessing 3 is the max you can stack before it starts to look crazy. So this is the bit that we're trying to cover, these roots here. And I'm also trying to give this plant a bit more support, with the idea being that hopefully some of these roots will grow into the substrate that I surround it with and just generally help it be more supported. I'm going to use 2 pot extenders today. 1 and then 2. And then after that, hopefully I'll be ready to give it a moss pole. Or, well, definitely a bigger pot, but then also a moss pole at some point. All right, so let's get going. So it says the first step is to peel and recycle the protective film. I love that. Okay, so here's the first pot extender I'm going to use. So I'm looking for the protective film to peel it off. I'm really bad at like finding the edge of these types of things. Oh, that was easy. Okay, so I'm just peeling off. I'm going to be to the side so you can see. I'm just going to peel off the protective film. See? Comes off nice and clean. Okay, I'm going to put this in the recycling. Now it says fold the connecting tabs A. So these over here are the small other connecting tabs. It says to fold them. So I guess I'm folding them inwards. 1, 2, and 3, folded. So I folded the connecting tabs per the instructions. And then it says you wrap the pot extender around the base of the plant and insert the connector B. This is the connector into the slot. This is the slot. So here's my plant. So now I'm going to wrap the pot extender. The connecting tabs go down on the soil level basically. A little bit fiddly, but I'm gonna get it. Okay, and insert this, and it says this should be on the inside. Oh, that was pretty smooth. Okay, so it says rotate the pot extender so that each petiole is aligned with the groove, but that is not, doesn't matter here. I don't have that. I don't actually have that scenario, so that's kind of a non-issue for us, which is nice. Simplifies things quite a bit. And then it says for the bottom extender, insert a stake. It comes with these metal stakes. Amazing. Insert the stake through the connecting tabs A. So I think this is to like secure the pot extender into the plant's pot. So that's what I'm doing now. So I've done 1. Actually, it doesn't even go all the way down though. I think because I'm using it in such a small pot, maybe? I don't know. 2. I feel like I'm damaging the roots so badly right now. I feel terrible. 3. I mean, okay. Well, it's in there. Secure. Stack the pot extenders by feeding connecting tabs A from the outside into the stacking slot. So this one, for this one, I fold them like I did for the other one, I guess. But then I stack it. I attach them like this. So they all have a corresponding spot where they go. Feed them in. 2. 3. And then we'll just slide this in with the other one. You know you've done it correctly if it's in a circle, which mine's in a circle. I think I'm killing it. So now, see? Now I'm going to fill it with my desired substrate, which is always going to be tree fern fiber. I have grown this so far. It's in straight tree fern right now, but I'm thinking of giving it a little bit of aroid mix just for those cocoa chunks. 1 scoop of aroid mix to 2 scoops of tree fern. I'm using Molly's aroid mix to cut through tree fern because it has cocoa chunks, which I think will hold a decent amount of water. Tree fern does a really good job, but I'm thinking maybe just give some airiness to those roots. Let's see what happens. So we'll see if this works well. So one scoop of the Molly. I'll put the link to the Molly's mix in the description so you can see. It's got cocoa chunks, charcoal, cocoa peat, perlite, mycorrhizae, a whole bunch of good stuff in there. So I'm going to go with 1 scoop of that, 1 scoop of Molly's. Actually, maybe I'll make a big mix because I've got other anthuriums. So 2 scoops of Molly's. 1 and 2 scoops of Molly's to 4 scoops of tree fern fiber, which I think should give me my desired ratio. This tree fern fiber, by the way, has been the best thing to happen to my anthuriums as far as I'm concerned. It's just made growing them so much easier. 1, 2, 3, another small scoop, 4. I buy mine on Amazon. I'll leave the link below. I really don't, I haven't found it anywhere else, but if anyone knows anywhere else to get it, let me know. I have it on subscribe and save, that's how much I use it. Just gonna mix it all together. This is nice because the Molly's itself is actually quite fluffy. It has some leca in there to make things airy, but also some nice big cocoa chunks. I think should work very well for this plant. So okay, so the mix is ready to go. It looks really good. All right, so now you just put the plant in the pot extender here. I'm just going to turn it like this actually so you can see what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that these are all covered. So this really extends the pot upwards, and then hopefully it will grow roots into the substrate. This is buying me some extra time before I have to repot this plant. I'm going to use the opportunity to pull it more upright and help to reduce the lean factor. So here we go. This product is actually super well designed. I like the fact that it's addressing a typical problem that plant people have. I feel like you have to be really into growing. You don't have to be really into growing plants to use it, but if you're into growing plants quite a bit, anthuriums and the like, you will have encountered this particular frustration quite a bit, where the plant starts to grow above the pot before you're ready to repot it, and you really just want to cover those aerial roots. Alocasias can be like that too. So I think this is quite a genius product, because again, I have used just regular pots in the past, but I don't really like the look of that as much. So if this can work, I will be thrilled. Super happy. Let's see. I just want to stop it leaning though. Maybe put some on this side. Maybe still leaning. Okay, here she is, all potted up with her pot extenders. So as you can see, I thought I was worried the substrate was going to start spilling out when I put it in, but it didn't. It was absolutely fine. And honestly, the pot extenders have allowed me to support the stem a lot more. So I do feel I've bought myself quite a bit of time. So yeah, this one is sorted out completely, and I think I will leave this one in the grow tent. Okay, up next is this guy. This plant is the bane of my existence. Look at how crispy these leaves are. This was also an import actually, from Tropicals. It's not their fault. It came in so beautifully. I'll put a picture up of what it used to look like when I got it. It was stunning. And then I decided to acclimate it in ambient humidity, just in my living room in open air. I don't know what, I have no idea why I thought this was a plant to experiment with, but I did. Didn't go well, obviously. But then I put it in the grow tent thinking, okay, great. I'll just throw it in the grow tent. It will solve all these crisping issues, because actually that's what usually happens when anything is acting up. If I put it in the tent, that kind of humidity environment helps. Did it solve anything? No. Is she still crispy as hell? Yes. So I've decided that the best solution is to repot this guy. I think maybe, for all its faults, for as difficult of a plant as it does put up new leaves very quickly. So maybe it just needs a lot more potting media than what I've given it. I know the roots probably need to draw a ton of water. I'm sure this is a plant that maybe would thrive in semi-hydro, but I'm stubborn and I'm not willing to try that unless it's the absolute last resort. Or maybe I'll put it in a self-watering pot eventually, but I just prefer to grow plants in organic media, so I'm going to try to repot it first to see if that helps. If it doesn't help, then I seriously have to reconsider. But I will say, once upon a time, the Waterburyanum looked crazy and it's fine, so maybe I'll figure this one out. Let's look at the root ball, just to see what we're working with. So I pulled out the root ball, and this is what we're working with. Honestly, it looks decent. There's a lot of secondary roots, but the primary roots are not as plentiful or as thick as I would have thought they would be. So I wonder if it does have a lot of roots. There are a lot of roots and not that much media. There's some sphagnum moss here from the moss it came in. It's potted in tree fern and moss. I think I'm going to repot it and see if being in a bigger pot with more potting media all around it helps it to kind of get its bearings a bit more. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to pot it up in aroid, in the mix of tree fern and aroid mix, and see how that goes. Maybe the cocoa chips holding more moisture will help and give it something to hold on to. I don't know, but it's a very, very irritating plant. Okay, so I'm going to put some mix in the bottom of the pot. Not too much, because I want to be sure that there'll be plenty to cover the plant itself too. I'm just watering it, as I always do, to make the transition easier. And I'm not going to loosen the root ball. I just dump it in as it is. I just think the less I mess with them, the better they tend to do. And since this one's already a real struggle bus case, the less I mess with it, the better. I'm just going to try to make sure it's standing up, as much supported underneath as much as possible. Now I'm going to water it thoroughly. And that's it. This one's done. On to the next. Okay, so the next one to be fixed is this guy. I have been putting this off for months and months and months, and now this plant that used to be pristine looks like trash because it's needed a new pot for ages and I haven't done it. It needs a moss pole. Look at the stem. I haven't done it. I need to prep it to potentially be cut at some point, but I don't know, I can't bring myself to cut it. I love it. This is what I'm thinking. Because the leaves look like trash already on this side, I would be cutting them off pretty soon regardless. So I'm thinking this might be my opportunity to get it into a bigger pot, but also get it on a moss pole. And then I can just, if the leaves want to shrivel up, that's fine. Eventually it will adjust. We know that eventually it will adjust. So it has to be done one day. Might as well do it today, is what I'm thinking. So yeah, I'm gonna pot up the queen. The humidity in here today is, see, the humidity in here right now is 35, so it is getting better. You know, spring's on the horizon, because this time a few weeks ago it would have been in the teens. So maybe she'll be all right, you know. Eventually, by the time summer rolls around, humidity should routinely be in the high 40s, low 50s in here, because of it would be higher than that, but the AC, you know. But I know that it should be okay if we can get up into the 40s. It's those 20s that are painful. I'm gonna take this out of this pot now. I'm gonna be making a typical moss pole. I thought about using one of those plastic backed ones, which I think is probably better for the Queen Anthurium, because I think it would definitely hold the moisture longer. But I don't have one in the house, and I can't afford to wait to do it. So I'm just gonna do it on a regular moss pole and hope I can keep it moist enough. I hope I can keep it moist enough to attach properly to the pole. Even if it doesn't attach properly, though, I do think just having that physical support there is a good thing. I wanted to do a tree fern pole, but I just didn't get my act together in time to buy the proper support, you know, because that, I think, would 100% have worked out phenomenally. So maybe next time, maybe when I cut this one, I can do that with the cuttings. Anyway, this is some hardware cloth that I'm using to make this moss pole. This is the 2 foot, it's 2 feet in length. For things like philodendrons, I use the 3 foot length, but for an anthurium, because they climb much more slowly, I use the 2 foot one. I'm just going to finish cutting it. For the circumference of the pole, I count 15 squares. That is the perfect size for the pole to be big enough to have a good surface area for things to grab onto and not dry out too quickly, but, you know, small enough to hold on to the correct amount of water. Moss poles, it's a little bit tricky, really. If they're too big, like, you know, if the diameter is too big, you need tons of moss, and it's just impossible to keep it, you know, to keep it nice. If they're too small, they dry out super quickly and they look dumb. This is the sweet spot, or it always has been anyway. I hope it stays the sweet spot for this. So I'm just shaping it slowly, making it rounder and rounder to form the shape that I will use for my moss pole. And then I'm going to soak some moss, and if I might put in some tree fern. I'll probably mix the moss up with a little bit of tree fern. I'm hoping that the presence of tree fern in the sphagnum will encourage the anthurium to root into this more quickly. I know that sounds crazy, but I do feel like tree fern is a real talisman for these anthuriums. For some reason, they love the stuff, so that's the plan for this one. Bend these inwards a bit so that they don't hurt me when I go to, when I go to kind of fasten the pole together with zip ties. So just doing that now. And I'm going to go and soak my sphagnum moss to make the moss pole. zip ties just to make everything look neater. Voila, moss pole. I made the surface of it a little bit flat just to help the anthurium, just because it's so tall already, to give it something to grip onto a bit better. It's time to mix up my potting mix for the queen anthurium. I'm going to be giving it a base of this Morley's orchid mix. I've never tried this, but I don't have any orchids, so I'm assuming that anthurium roots being closest to orchid roots, I figure maybe we'll like some of this. I usually put my anthuriums in mostly tree fern fiber. The queen is getting bigger, and because I'm going to have her out here in open air eventually, I do think that she'll need something with some cocoa chips to hold even more moisture, so that the watering frequency can be a little bit more manageable, because right now sometimes I have to water her every day at the moment. So this is going to be the base, and then I'm going to add tree fern to it, and it says it contains cocoa chips, pine bark, a whole bunch of different lava rocks and pumice, and some mycorrhizae and other bits and bobs. So I will mix this in with a bunch of tree fern fiber, and that should be just what I need to pot up the queen. At first glance, it looks kind of similar to the aroid mix. It feels less soft than the aroid mix, like similar but not as soft. Scoop one. Like, it feels like it has more rocks than the aroid mix did. This has pumice instead of leca. I guess that's one of the biggest differences. The other one had a bunch of leca. So here we go. I've got 2 scoops of this. Well, that's kind of a half scoop. 1, 2. Honestly, I just eyeball this, but if you're being exact, I would say 2/3 tree fern, 1/3 orchid mix. I'm gonna mix it to see if it's the right balance and if it needs more of anything. I've just pulled her out of her pot, and this is her root ball. Now the moral of the story is, do not wait until this happens before repotting the queen and giving her some kind of support. So my solution to get the moss pole in is to flatten it as much as I can so that it fits in the back seamlessly. It's actually a fantastic fit. And now I'm going to backfill it with the soil mix, and then when everyone is happy, I will attach, actually I'm going to attach her now. I'm going to attach the queen to the pole, make sure that she's in contact with the moisture. Okay, so here is where I want to make sure that this point makes contact with the moss so that she can root into the moss. This Velcro is one of my favorite, this plant Velcro, it's one of my favorite tools because it's soft on the inside so it doesn't hurt the plant at all, but the Velcro on the outside so I can easily attach things. And it's green so it sort of stays hidden. So I've got one there, if that's actually doing anything. I'm gonna put one right here. It doesn't need to like be perfect, it just needs to be close enough that it can sense that moisture, and hopefully it will root into it. hopefully. I think I will put it back into the grow tent, just hopefully give it a bit more time to root into the pole, and then once it's rooted into the pole, I'll pull it out. I actually need to trim a lot of these old leaves, but I sort of don't want to take them off yet. I kind of want to wait till I pull it out, just because I feel like the plant will need some spare leaves to destroy when it can't get the moisture at once. Okay, so now it's attached to the pole. It's making pretty good contact, I think. Hopefully we'll see some action, and I'm just going to fill the rest of it with this mix. Honestly, that wasn't as traumatic as I thought. Here she is. She's in a nice big pot. Got a moss pole, and I'm hopeful that this will help her kind of dig in and continue to size up. Once she's rooted into the pole and she seems happy, I will pull her out and put her in the living room for the summer, where she will stay henceforth, because she's getting too big. She's getting too big. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's unbox the new plant. Now I got this plant on a video live stream, one of those where you just bid, and I won the bid for this one. It was a little bit of an impulsive purchase. Like, I have wanted one of these for a long time, but it wasn't like I kind of scrutinized and searched for the one. I was like, oh yeah, that's the one. I just was watching the live stream. It looked pretty, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll have that. And I don't really know necessarily how to care for it, but I like to kind of, I'm one of those people that likes to just take the leap. I start from a point of believing I can, and then figuring it out. That's kind of the fun thing with plant care anyway. So, yeah. This is packed extremely, extremely well. It's from Tropicals Plants, and one thing I like is every order I've received from them has been packed beautifully. So it's wrapped in many layers, and I'm super impressed because it's kind of insulated from bad weather, and at the same time it's wrapped so well that it's probably not gonna, even if it got thrown around in the post, it would be fine, which I love. So let's take off all these layers, right? And look, it's got my full name on it. I'm on FA so far. FA for short. I think they do such a nice wrapping job at Tropicals, honestly. I'm really, really impressed with how these plants arrive. Everything is packed with such sort of love and attention and care. I really like that, It's nice to know that you can rely on them when you order something. You know it's probably going to arrive in pretty decent condition. Let's see what this one's like on the inside. I don't know. Whew. Gonna have to do a lot of cleaning up after this, but I digress. Trying not to show you. I'm trying not to show you the label, which actually says what the plant is, because I'm terrible. I'm terrible at creating suspense in my unboxing videos. I'm working on it. Okay. So here we go. It's really carefully wrapped. I see some dark leaves. If you guessed it was another anthurium, you would be correct, because I am who I am, and I love anthuriums. Okay. Careful, careful. Careful, careful, careful. Oh my. Here it is. taped to the bottom of. Here it is. Anthurium Waterburyanum Black Sharp. Whatever that means. It's a poppy. It's a Waterburyanum. A poppy. I have in my collection 1 or 2 Waterburyanum hybrids, but I don't have the pure Waterburyanum. I don't have just, just a poppy. And I saw this one and I couldn't resist, so here she is. Waterburyanum. She is stunning. I mean, these leaves are dark, velvety, perfect, absolutely beautiful. I'm really excited to learn and to try to grow this plant. I actually don't know anything about poppy, so if anyone has any clues or tips on how it might differ from other anthuriums, or if there are any special things I should be aware of, I'm all ears. My plan is to put it in my grow tent to recover and reroot. I usually use pure tree fern to reroot my imports. I'll put it in just some water to rehydrate for like an hour or so. Actually, I typically do 24 hours. I just leave it in a cup of water. I leave them in a cup of water in my grow tent for 24 hours to really soak up a lot of water. The good news is, usually with imports, you don't tend to get a lot of pest problems because the process they have to go through to get in here is so stringent in the first place. So it should be fine, but I typically will clean them anyway just in case. So the leaves look good, but what about the roots? Let's open this and see. It's packed in milled moss. The moss is quite dry, so it's definitely ready for a drink. See, finely milled, really nice moss actually. See if I can preserve as much of the moss as possible. Moss came off quite easily. These are the roots. It's got a pretty big root system, I think. Good size. This right here, you see the break here? So this is obviously a dead root. So I'm gonna get some scissors and cut off the dead bits. So I cut off the dead bits. I'm not gonna do it now because honestly, it can be quite difficult to see. Anthurium roots usually look okay fresh out of the thing, but when you start digging in, you start realizing just how many are dead. These are the roots. They look really good. I'll clean the whole thing with water and castile soap, and then soak this whole root ball in water and peroxide. See, this is broken, and that's to deal with any rot issues. And then tomorrow I will cut off anything that's obviously dead and just pot it up in tree fern fiber in a very small pot. And that's it. All the plants are rehabbed. The grow tent is freshly cleaned out, and the new plant is enjoying its water and rehydration bath, which I will let it sit in for 24 hours. Tomorrow, I will take it out of that and check again if there are any more broken roots or if anything has rotted. Sometimes it doesn't show up until 24 hours after, which is why I like to let it sit in water for that period of time. Once I've checked them and they look perfectly fine, I will pot it up. But till then, I guess it will just hopefully be getting acclimated to its new home. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.